The year is 1763. The landscape of North America is forever altered. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1763, brought an end to the 7 Years' War, a conflict that had raged across continents and reshaped empires. This treaty was a pivotal moment in history, redrawing the map of North America and setting the stage for future conflicts and alliances. France, defeated in the 7 Years' War, cedes its vast Canadian territories to Great Britain in the Treaty of Paris. This monumental shift in power saw the French relinquish control over lands they had explored and settled for over a century. The British, now the dominant power in North America, faced the daunting task of integrating these new territories into their empire. This transfer of land marks a profound turning point, ushering in a new era of British dominance. The British flag was raised over former French territories, symbolizing a new order. However, this change was not merely a matter of flags and maps. It was a transformation that would deeply affect the lives of the people who lived there. The Canadians, as the French inhabitants were known, suddenly found themselves under the rule of a foreign power. Their daily lives, traditions, and governance were now subject to British authority. This abrupt change brought uncertainty and anxiety to a community that had long been accustomed to French rule. Their way of life, rooted in French language, civil law, and Catholic faith, faced an uncertain future. The British, with their own legal systems and Protestant faith, represented a stark contrast to the established norms of the Canadians. This cultural and religious divergence would become a source of tension and conflict in the years to come. The British, for their part, were tasked with governing a vast and unfamiliar territory, home to a population with distinct customs and traditions. They had to navigate the complexities of administering a land where the people spoke a different language and followed different laws. This was no small feat and required careful planning and diplomacy. This marked the beginning of Canada's journey from colony to sovereignty, a path marked by complexity, compromise, and ultimately the forging of a new national identity. The challenges were immense. The British had to balance their own interests with the needs and rights of the French Canadians, all while maintaining control over a vast and diverse territory. How would the British administer this new colony? The question loomed large as they set about establishing governance structures and policies. They had to consider the existing French legal and social systems and decide how much to integrate or replace them with British institutions. What would become of the French population and their rights? The Canadians were concerned about their future under British rule. Would their language, religion, and customs be respected, or would they be forced to assimilate into British culture? These questions loomed large in the aftermath of the treaty. The answers were not immediately clear and would be shaped by the actions and decisions of both the British and the French Canadians in the years that followed. The answers, however, would not come easily. They would be the result of negotiations, conflicts, and compromises. The British and the French Canadians would have to find a way to coexist and build a new society together. They would be shaped by a series of events, both within Canada and on the world stage, that would test the mettle of the British Empire and ignite the spirit of a nascent Canadian identity. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but it was also filled with opportunities for growth and change. The ink on the Treaty of Paris was barely dry when the first rumblings of discontent began to stir. The Canadians, who had lived under French rule for generations, were wary of the new British authorities and their intentions. The Canadians, accustomed to the seigneurial system and the Catholic Church's influence, viewed the arrival of British institutions with a mix of apprehension and resentment. They feared the loss of their traditional ways of life and the imposition of foreign laws and customs. The British, meanwhile, grappled with the complexities of governing a population accustomed to different laws and traditions. They had to find a way to assert their authority while also respecting the rights and customs of the French Canadians. This clash of cultures and aspirations would lay the groundwork for the long and winding road to Canadian sovereignty. The journey would be marked by struggles and triumphs as both the British and the French Canadians worked to build a new future together. In the wake of the Treaty of Paris, the British Crown sought to establish order and assert its authority over its newly acquired territories. The vast expanse of land gained from the French posed both opportunities and challenges for the British administration. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 served as a foundational document in this endeavour. It was a bold attempt to bring order to the chaotic aftermath of the war. It aimed to assimilate the French population by introducing British institutions and laws, including common law and a system of government based on the British model. This was no small feat, as it required a delicate balance between imposing British rule and respecting existing French customs. However, the proclamation also recognized the unique circumstances of the colony and made some concessions to the Canadians. These concessions were crucial in maintaining a semblance of peace and order. French civil law was permitted to continue in matters of property and inheritance, ensuring that the Canadians could retain some of their traditional ways of life, while freedom of religion was guaranteed, albeit with limitations on the Catholic Church's political role. This was a significant concession, as the Catholic Church played a central role in the lives of the Canadians. These attempts at assimilation, however, were met with resistance from the Canadians. They viewed the British efforts as an encroachment on their cultural identity and way of life. They clung steadfastly to their language, faith, and customs, viewing the British efforts as a threat to their cultural identity. This resistance was not just passive, it manifested in various forms of defiance and non-compliance. The Quebec Act of 1774 represented a significant shift in British policy. It was a response to the growing unrest and the need to secure the loyalty of the Canadians. Recognizing the strategic importance of maintaining stability in the face of growing unrest in the American colonies, the British Parliament sought to appease the Canadians. The act was a calculated move to ensure that Quebec would not join the burgeoning rebellion to the south. The act expanded the boundaries of Quebec and, crucially, granted official recognition to the Catholic Church and French civil law. This was a clear attempt to win the favour of the Canadians by acknowledging and preserving their cultural and religious practices. This move, while intended to pacify the Canadians, further alienated the British colonists in the south, who viewed it as favouritism towards the French. The British colonists felt betrayed and saw this as a direct threat to their own interests and liberties. The Quebec Act, though intended to quell unrest, inadvertently fanned the flames of discontent. It became one of the intolerable acts that fueled the revolutionary fervour in the American colonies. The American colonies, already on the brink of rebellion, saw the act as a dangerous precedent, fearing that the British Crown would grant similar concessions to Catholic populations elsewhere. This fear was not unfounded, as the act set a precedent for how the British might handle other colonies. Moreover, the act's expansion of Quebec into the Ohio Valley angered colonists with land claims in the region. These settlers felt that their rights and opportunities were being trampled upon by the British government. The seeds of revolution already sown were now being nourished by British policies in Canada. The discontent in the American colonies was reaching a boiling point, and the Quebec Act was a significant catalyst. The period following the Treaty of Paris was a time of significant change and uncertainty. The British were navigating uncharted waters, trying to manage a vast and diverse empire. The British government, grappling with the challenges of governing a vast and diverse territory, sought to impose its will while also making concessions to maintain stability. This balancing act was fraught with difficulties and often led to unintended consequences. These early attempts at governance, however, often resulted in unintended consequences, fueling tensions between the British and Canadians and contributing to the growing unrest that would soon erupt in the American Revolution. The stage was set for a dramatic and transformative period in North American history. The American Revolution, which raged from 1775 to 1783, was a pivotal event in world history. It not only led to the birth of a new nation, but also had far-reaching consequences for its northern neighbour, Canada. The conflict cast a long shadow over the Canadian colonies, influencing their development in profound ways. While the Canadians largely remained neutral, the war had a profound impact on the demographic and political landscape of British North America. The neutrality of the Canadians was a strategic decision as they sought to avoid the chaos and destruction that the war brought to their southern neighbours. The arrival of thousands of Loyalists, those who remained faithful to the British Crown, fleeing the newly independent United States, led to significant changes. These Loyalists, often facing persecution and loss of property in the United States, sought refuge in the British-controlled territories to the north. These refugees, predominantly English-speaking and Protestant, sought refuge in Canada, where they hoped to rebuild their lives under British rule. They brought with them their customs, traditions, and a strong sense of loyalty to the British Crown, which would shape the cultural fabric of the Canadian colonies. The influx of Loyalists had far-reaching consequences. It not only increased the population of the Canadian colonies, but also introduced new cultural and political dynamics. It led to the creation of the province of New Brunswick in 1784, carved out of Nova Scotia to accommodate the growing Loyalist population. This new province became a haven for Loyalists, providing them with land and resources to start anew. This influx also tipped the balance of power in British North America, bolstering the English-speaking Protestant population. The demographic shift was significant, as it altered the social and political landscape of the region. The Canadians, once the dominant group, now found themselves facing a growing English-speaking presence. This shift created tensions and competition for resources and political influence. This demographic shift would have lasting implications for the political and cultural development of Canada. The interactions between the Canadians and the Loyalists would shape the future of the Canadian colonies, leading to a unique blend of cultures and traditions. The arrival of the Loyalists also brought with it a strong sense of loyalty to the British Crown and a desire for a representative government. They sought to establish a political system that balanced the authority of the Crown with the rights of the people. Having experienced what they perceived as the excesses of democracy in the American colonies, the Loyalists were keen to create a system of governance that balanced popular representation with the authority of the Crown. This desire for a balanced approach to government would influence the development of Canadian political institutions in the years to come. This desire for a more balanced approach to government would influence the development of Canadian political institutions in the years to come. The Loyalists' experiences and ideas would leave a lasting legacy on the political landscape of Canada. The American Revolution, though fought on foreign soil, left an indelible mark on Canada. The conflict and its aftermath reshaped the Canadian colonies in ways that would influence their future development. It led to the influx of Loyalists, a demographic shift that altered the cultural and political landscape of the colonies. The arrival of these new settlers brought about changes that would resonate for generations. Moreover, the revolution served as a cautionary tale, shaping the views of both the British and the colonists on the delicate balance between colonial rule and self-governance. The lessons learned from the American Revolution would guide the Canadian colonies as they navigated their own path towards self-determination. Canada, though still under British rule, would embark on its own unique path towards self-determination, shaped by the lessons of the American Revolution. The experiences of the Loyalists and the impact of the American Revolution would play a crucial role in the evolution of Canadian identity and governance.